If I say graphic card, you surely think of something like this. But a GPU can look very different, and we have to consider that what we see on the outside is just a case made by different manufacturers. That's why the same graphic processing unit can look like this. Or it can look like this. But okay, everyone, including me, thinks of something like this when we hear the word graphic card. I say it has to have a somewhat gamer look. But not only that, we know that the more gamer it looks, the more elegant it looks, or the bigger it is, the more money it will cost us. The assemblers have different models of graphic cards of the same GPU. And just like that, the more impressive it looks, the more money it will cost you, even though the performance is exactly the same. Obviously, people who want to build the most attractive computer in the world buy the most basic models, but those who want to save as much as possible buy the most basic model. But what if I tell you that there is a hidden graphics model, even more basic, even cheaper, but with the same performance? Welcome to a new video. When NVIDIA releases a new graphics card model, it is not this piece of metal or sometimes plastic in the one they work on for a year. It's not the inside, the GPU, the VRAM, etc. Once they design it, the assemblers make their own graphics card with their ventilation technology and etc. But the GPU is the same in all these manufacturers. They are the brands that we all already know. There's MSI, Gigabyte, Zotac, and even some Asian manufacturers that are less known, like Palette, that in fact are usually cheaper. What's more, there are graphic cards from assemblers that you probably have never heard of on AliExpress. But what am I going with this? It turns out that there are graphic cards from gigantic brands that you probably hadn't heard of. And what are these brands? Yes, they surely sound familiar to you from something. Not HP and Dell are from the largest technology companies in the world, monitors, printers, laptops, and computers, but these have nothing to do with the ones we review here on the channel. Well, it turns out that these brands also have their gaming lines, HP, Omen, and Dell with Alienware. What's more, fun fact, HP owns HyperX, Omen, and Alienware. They have all kinds of gamer things from mice and keyboards to, yes, gamer computers. Yes, they look like the ones that we review on the channel, but they have a terrible reputation since they generally have exorbitant prices for the components they include. I went to the official Alienware page to see which was the cheapest computer they had, and on their page, it cost $2,000. If you wanted to make that same computer with better quality components, it would cost like $500 less. However, these ones don't have something very special, so to speak, their graphics card. Because don't think that these HP or Dell computers have the same graphics cards that we buy. They have a model of graphics cards that are known as OEM, graphics cards that are mass-produced and that you can't get separately. These graphics cards don't come in a beautiful box, they don't come with manuals, and they don't have a futuristic design. No, none of that. These graphics cards are only available by buying entire computers from these brands. And curiously, although they are included in ultra-expensive computers on the resale market for different reasons, they are the cheapest. That's right, it doesn't matter what model of graphics card I looked for. When I ordered them from lowest to highest price, the first options were always one of these graphics cards. Taken from an HP computer or a computer in some cases, up to 20% cheaper than other graphics cards. Remember that we are talking about used graphics cards. That is, if a graphics card is already cheaper than a new one, imagine that you still discount another 20%. And look, I'm not saying that nobody buys new graphics cards anymore and that everyone starts buying this type of graphics cards, but let's see, if there are people who buy graphics cards on AliExpress from ultra dubious sellers just to save as much as possible, which by the way, if you want a video assembling an ultra cheap computer only with parts from AliExpress, leave me a comment. Well, maybe someone with a very tight budget decides to buy one of these graphics cards because in the end, it can be the difference between having a 1660 or a 3060. But if people get them from such expensive computers to sell them so cheap, surely they must have something wrong, they must work horribly. Well, let's find out. About a year and a half ago, I urgently needed a graphics card, and after searching a lot, I bought this RTX 2060 Super taken from an Alienware computer for an incredible price. And more, considering that in those times was when there was more scarcity. I knew let's test it in games and benchmarks and let's compare it with my 3060 and a normal 2060. I don't have another 2060 Super like these to compare it directly. But the only thing we need is for it to go better than a 2060 and a little below the 3060, in theory of course. We're also going to look at the temperatures. Being a single fan, it has to get hotter, but to what point? Will there be some throttling or will it perform perfectly? Well, this was what happened. We tested graphics cards in 3 games and a fairly simple performance benchmark. The first game I tested was Valorant, where the 2060 had an average of 310 FPS, the 3060 an average of 357 FPS, and the RTX 2060 Super OEM an average of 320. It's practically what we expected. Then I tested Rocket League. The 2060 had an average of 300 FPS, the 3060 an average of 345, and the OEM graphics card an average of 339. The last game I tested was Warzone, where in fact the graphics were almost the same in the same case with the performance benchmark, where they had a very similar average. All the problem was when we checked the maximum temperature of each one, where the 3060 with 3 fans had a maximum of 62 degrees, the 2060 a maximum of 76, but the web graphic had a maximum of 88 degrees. It should be mentioned that I had it stuck to the glass, and being a single fan, the heat increases a lot. Even so, obviously they are very high temperatures. It should be noted that during the test, we did not notice at any time that the performance was affected. And you will see it is normal that in a one-fan graphic, the temperatures are higher. And let's add that this graphic has already been used for a while, but there are many solutions. Undervolt, changing thermal pads. Obviously, I was not going to stay like that, so I called my friend Emiliano so we could do one of the simplest things we could do, change the thermal paste. And obviously, we did not expect any miracle to happen with the temperature. That was exactly what happened, since it only dropped like 2 degrees. And it was not until I removed the side window of the cabinet that the temperature dropped almost 10 degrees. In conclusion, this cheap graphics card met what I expected. The performance was very good and the temperatures were high. From my point of view, you should stay away from these cheap cards just because they get very hot. Not especially because fixing this problem would be easy. In fact, if you want, I can make a video testing different methods that I'm sure would work and don't cost money or cost very little. In the end, you draw your own conclusions. This video is more than anything an experiment to entertain you and show you new options for those who are looking for them. The rest I leave it to you. Make the background music very soft and relaxed background music. Settings. Use a male clear American voice for speaker 1.